Hello, and welcome to the Frictionless Experience, the podcast where we lay waste to digital friction. I'm Chuck Moxley.
And I'm Nick Palladino.
On today's episode, we're going to be talking about how digital transformation drives frictionless digital experiences. Joining us as an expert on these topics, Jean-Louis He, Director of Digital and eCommerce at Yves Saint-Laurent Beauty, which is part of the Luxe division of L'Oreal. Now, prior to his role at YSL, Jean-Louis was Director of User Experience at Valtech, helping brands like Chanel and Samsung and Hyatt Hotels build frictionless digital experiences. Jean-Louis, welcome to the Frictionless Experience.
Thanks, Chuck and Nick, for having me for this episode. Really excited to be here with you guys.
Awesome. We're excited to have you with us here today, too. Now, were you always interested in being in the digital sector? Tech, tell us a bit about your origin story, how you ended up where you are today.
I'd say there was a common thread to where I am right now. So personal story. I wanted to be an architect when I was a kid. There was something about architecture with the design aspect, with shapes and form. There was something that I loved when I was a kid, and somehow throughout my career, throughout like the different experiences that I had, I found myself being super passionate by user experience, like shaping structural aspect of digital tools, the design aspect of it. Taxonomy and all that stuff that I learned throughout different experiences in my life. Everything tied up in digital, of course. Like my whole background has been like 15 years in the digital and tech space, agencies between Paris and New York when I moved like almost 10 years ago, and leading up all the things that I'm doing right now for YSLBeautyUS.com. Really focus on, as I mentioned, like the site experience and such. But there was always this common thread, architecture to design to crafting experiences, and really seeing the boom of digital from when I started my study, also like in a digital school when at that time it was one of the first digital school in Paris that I entered like within few years. This school has expanded to like all the new tech, and right now like the school is teaching a student like AI and Web3 and such. But like at the time when I went to that school it's been like almost 20 years, I'd say, like almost. The learning that we had at that time was like the basic of marketing online, coding, like learning how HTML and CSS was about, and then seeing all those evolution is kind of super interesting to see like the different iteration of the web to what we have as of now.
We were just talking about that the other day, Nick. I can't remember if it was on one of our episodes or about when we built our first websites and there was no website to follow. And we were just kind of making it up as we went back in the day.
There's something funny about what you're mentioning on like the website and such when we didn't have like a blueprint. Like I remember when I started to do UX in a sense, and maybe some of the fellow listeners that are designer will not like that, but I had to do it in PowerPoint at some point. We had to do because like some of the tools were not like we couldn't have a license and stuff, so we had to do wireframe in a PowerPoint. And I still have those because it was an easy way to pull something together. Now we have like a tremendous tools like Figma and such that is out there, like with all those advanced prototype and such. But I recall a time when we had to, in the consulting life, to have PowerPoint wireframe. So no blueprint, but we had to figure out a way to make it happen. And I'm not even thinking okay, all the way we had to do it on paper and pen to paper.
I mean, PowerPoint and Excel, for that matter, have to be the most abused programs of all time. Like they're doing way more than they were ever designed.
I've done a wireframe or 10 in PowerPoint in my career. I'll buy that. So Jean-Louis, how has that your background experience and that interest in architecture shaped how you see the digital and physical experience in that relation between them?
So if I'm fast forward to the question that you asked at the beginning about like the boom of e-commerce and like the back to retail and all the things that we've seen where people want to go back to like the physical store and such. I come from a background when in Paris, my parents had a Chinese restaurant, and the baseline that I learned when I grew up over there was to serve consumer into a restaurant. So you have like this one-to-one relationship with the client that were coming in. I was like a 15 years old, speaking to my first client and learning about like the ropes or like the business for my parents, but like everything was analog. There was nothing digital per se. We didn't have like a Google page, or such. Like we were not referenced in Google Maps and such. I'm seeing all the evolution from that lens when I saw that the emergence of web at that time when we started to have, maybe we should have a presence online and such, to where we are right now. We're going to get back into this whole process where the physical world has been enhanced in some way with the digital transformation that has happened. When now I'm seeing it to like a lot of retailer, there's a lot of more innovative experience, whether like a connected mirror or the QR code in store is still like something that is a low tech but have some value into like connecting to a digital interface. There's some experience when you have to check in and such. So there's all those aspects of like how do you redefine retail with those digital tools. And when I go back into like some of those baseline, I don't know if you've seen the movie from McDonald's, like the story. I forgot like the story of like the founders of McDonald's.
Yeah,
Like,
I know exactly the movie you're talking about.
Yeah, about Ray Kroc. What was the name of that one? Yeah.
Man,
I've read the book too, so it's a fascinating story.
Yeah, our listeners are yelling at us right now for not knowing this name.
Yeah. Pardon my French. I forgot like the name of the movie, but I recall like there was a scene at the beginning that I think I've used into like some of the projects that I run in the past where they were shaping the floor plan of the store and showing like how can you be more effective into going to one place to the other, so like you gain in productivity. And I recall using that as an example from my personal knowledge in the restaurant that we had in Paris with my parents, when it was like it was small shape, so we had to make sure that no one was bumping into each other, and we used that as a reference point for one of the connected store that I was part of. Sorry, I need to repeat that one because a connected workshop, as they were calling it, for one of the brands that I was working on during my life at Baltec. And we use that as a way that also to apply to the digital realm. So we wanted to make sure that someone that was experiencing something in the retail store could have the same experience online. And that, I think, one way that we want to reflect the same thing. I'm thinking like now, going back to what I'm doing right now, with the e-com business with YSL, we want to reflect the same story, the way that you navigate into a store to its virtual representation online. And then I think that's always those links that you want to create every time that is super interesting to do.
That really calls back to one of my times back at Home Depot, where we were always trying to build the digital apron, is what we would call it. So it was about having that experience of going into a Home Depot store and you have that associate there for you that, you know, for most people's experience is the end all be all expert. They can get you down to that tiny little piece that you need to go find. How do you replicate that in the digital experience on a brand like that? And obviously that's going to be very different than what you're talking about. But I also looked up the movie. It was called The Founder. So I cheated by looking it up, but I wanted to make sure we made that reference here because we were talking about it.
But that was a great scene in that movie where they laid out the restaurant and they were trying to figure out how to efficiently make hamburgers and French fries and not run into each other and all that. So I got exactly what you were talking about. And I was thinking, your world, that's a little bit hard because some of your products, so some of the products you carry in store are going to be fragrances, right? Which you can't really experience in a digital world. Although I do remember in the .com day, they came out with a box that got attached to your computer and it would put smells out. So if you were seeing a website or a commercial
Wasn't that
for
Nickelodeon?
No, I can't remember. It was some technology.
No, it was Nickelodeon had it. I'm telling you, it was like they called it like the smell-o-vision or the sniff-o-vision
So
or something, and
yeah,
it would
yeah,
send you a card, and you were supposed to scratch off the specific card and smell it. I
Mhm.
yeah,
remember it very specifically.
yeah. It was a technology that never made it, but the same idea. So
I have attended like recently like a retail luxury event where the host was presenting. It was at Microsoft, presenting a lot of different innovation into. It was about Web3, AI, of course. There was like a beauty tech. There was a lot of advanced technology, and they were presenting a showcase of a headset that was connected to your brain. That was a way to based on like not what you say, but like what your brain is providing as a signal through the helmet. What kind of scent makes more sense for you? So like you smell like a scent, and then your brain was just telling what you really like, not what you're gonna say you like or not. I don't have all the detail, and I'm maybe like butchering like the whole story. But ultimately, there's a lot of new tech innovations that's super interesting to see. Of course, the e-com business with a website will not provide the same experience as going to a Sephora to smell a fragrance. But there's another way that you can tell a story. Like I know, like a brand like YSL has a strong heritage and story to tell about like its value and like how do you translate some of our key products like Libre is meaning like free in the US, has a lot of values, have the smell. So there's a lot of things that you can tell us like through crafting a story and a narrative that is shared out there. And then at the same time, there's a lot of tech that is out there that a lot of brands are exploring. We're also exploring a lot of things in that space to make sure that we can target that US consumer that wants to discover those fragrances. Of course, nothing will replace the fact that you smell the fragrance, but at the end of the day, there's a way that you can address it through different lenses.
I'll tell you, it's almost like either the wine world or the whiskey world, where you're talking about like flavor notes and flavor profiles. How do you sell that in the online space? And obviously, you can do that, or at least from my experience, you can do that very well.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
but it's very similar where you're bringing in these like visuals that make it represent that profile. It's really interesting to think about, especially when you're tackling it from a user experience standpoint. Like that's a challenge, absolutely, but like it's one that's solvable.
and you're raising a point like about user experience that I feel like is we often tied up user experience to the user interface experience, so like you in front of a computer or you in front of your phone. But I see to that point the user experience as a whole. So it's the human interface, the way that you interact with the product with a digital tool in hand. There's all those different interfaces, of course. Like to me, the best like with all the technology that we're seeing right now, with advanced tech that we are seeing, still for most of people, like the human to phone interface is the best that can apply. But all those user experience that you can have is ways that you can also experience product in a different way. And we all tailor our journey based on what we have in front of us. So like I spend most of my time, of course, on my phone. But that's kind of my gateway with those experience that I want to have out there. And that's always something that is always interesting to see, like that human interface aspect.
now, for people who are just listening to this podcast, they will not have seen, but I don't know if you caught this when we're talking about doing this. You did something with your hand gestures, and it caused that new Apple feature to
The plus,
yeah. There's suddenly a
yeah.
thumbs up symbol that came on top of your screen. I don't know if you noticed that earlier, but we've had that happen. Our CEO did something the other day, and suddenly balloons went up behind him on the screen. So that's a great example of sort of connecting the physical and digital, right on our screens. But again, if you're listening, you won't have seen that. So in our early conversations, we talked about your interest in crypto and NFTs. What sparked that curiosity for you?
I'd say from on a real personal level, and everything that I have experienced so far is like my I'd say my background into research, into UX, and like all the things that I was mentioning at the beginning. all the evolution that comes into tech is something that I'm always interested about. I know that right now we speak a lot about AR, VR with a lot of brands out there that feature some of those. We like the Apple set that will be released, and all those kind of new tech that we have out there. Is something that we're seeing a lot happening. I don't know if that's due to the pandemic, but I feel like there's a part that was due to that. I recall back my first encounter with AR and VR for some concept that we had back in my agency life, where in 2015, 2016, but at the time it was just like a far concept out there that people were still using it, but not as democratized as it is right now. I'm applying the same thing into Web3, cryptos and such. I know everything was said like 2020 was the year of crypto, NFTs was 2021, 2022 was the metaverse, and this year was AI as the big buzzword out there. I feel it's always like those tech is always interesting to explore. That's the first being part of early adopter, like the trendsetter into those space is always interesting to understand, and being part of this first list of geeks that get into the space is always interesting. And the goal is to see how that will change or evolve a bit our usage at the end of the day. As I mentioned, I spend most of my time on my phone. If I open my phone, there's like all the my banking system, my now my NFT and the digital collectible that I have out there, my cryptos, my stock and such. So everything is accessible through my phone. And I feel like that's the part that I'm super excited about, is like this evolution of web, that you give more, at the end of the day, the Web3 is kind of that mindset, is like you give more control to its user. So like we as a user have more control into our data, or what we own, what we use, what we share out there, which is a different departure from what we had before. The Web2 space was more about like what you share on social. Now it's all the things that you own, that you can have as a gateway with the brands, or as a gateway with people that you interact with. And I feel like that's the interesting portion of Web3. There's a lot of things that we can say that is positive or not into the space, but I feel that's the part that I'm excited about, is to see how that evolve, and how all those different tech solution that is out there is providing new ways of looking at like that overall UX and such.
I remember seeing my first introduction into crypto was pre NFT, but it was Bitcoin at $2 per Bitcoin, $2. And it was back in 2012, and I was like, why would anybody spend this kind of money on digital currency? Like, that sounds so silly. Man, the hindsight 2020, obviously, but like throw $100 at that. Like, whew, I wouldn't be doing this podcast right now.
Just leaving the school. So in 2009, when I left so no, it was 2008 or 2009, I forgot, like one of the guy into our school. So like most of us went into agencies. Most of them went to agencies, and I think one of the guy from our school went to startup and such. So he talk. We had like like a gathering with like all the guys and the people in the school. And I recall him saying, I think it was pretty much at the same time, the 2011, 2012 timeframe, about like Bitcoin. But everyone was like, why do you put money online? When do you want to buy like fake money online? The same way I heard when NFT came out at the beginning, why do you want to buy for something that you can copy paste and such? Now, fast forward, I think there's like the speculation that have evolved into like the Bitcoin to where it stands right now, and like the NFT when it was like nothing to some that will be part of like CryptoPunks being like one of the first few that was out there. We still hold its value, but yeah, that's always interesting to see like. If we would have get more informed at that time, maybe there's more decision that we would have done into that sense, but no regrets. I think it's part of the learning curve.
You know that, yeah. One of the, like, it's a little bit more philosophical, but one of the things I like to say about every decision you make in any one moment is the best decision you know to make. And even if it's ultimately the wrong decision, it was still the best decision at the time that you knew to make. So you have to trust your own decisions. But nothing stands up to the Papa John's pizza story of 10,000 Bitcoin for two pizzas. Nothing is going to ever compare to that.
No.
Holy cow.
That story was something.
So, Jean-Louis, how is YSL using NFTs? What's the way you've actually used those there?
So as a brand, we had our first entry into Web3 and NFTs in 2022 with our launch of YSL Beauty Blocks that was released during the summer. It was our first attempt into getting a new way to connect with our consumers. So the whole focus was releasing a set of NFTs that people can mint and access. The whole intent was to test and learn. I think there's a big thing out there that is a test and learning. How do we connect with consumer in a different ways? Right now, most of the brand, and I'm speaking on from what we've seen on the website, but like from what I've seen on multiple brands out there, there's most of the time a one-way communication between the brands and its consumer. So you have, of course, loyalty program. You have different ways that you can connect with the brand, but nothing compared to what I've seen into Web3 when you bring consumer part of the story of a brand. So you bring them into the narrative. Some brand, I think like often we use Nike as an example, but they've done a lot of things into different test and learn whenever they've done the partnership with Artifact, or they've done their dot swoosh, launch where people were really being involved into the brand story, like crafting. I remember like they were doing a challenge, showcasing participatory challenge on Instagram, having people to share few visuals that represent a theme, and then one of the winner could being selected to use those themes that he pulled together to craft the look and feel of one of the shoes. And I feel some of those ideas like this that relate to the way that you communicate with your community, the fact that you show up with the brand, you part of like those AMA session, grant you access to some exclusive product, or being part of the way you can craft the next version of the Air Force One. I think it's a good example of like the way that we're looking at also on the YSL side, to make sure that we find a way that we can connect differently with our consumer.
Gotcha. So what are some examples either at YSL or maybe some of your prior experience where you identified friction in a digital experience and were able to remove it and build more trust and loyalty from consumers?
I'd say the friction that is, I think I'm going to speak on like I'm going to put my UX hat in there. Web3 NFTs and cryptos and wallet and such is not an easy thing to do. Like you were mentioning at the beginning, like the Bitcoin and buying a Bitcoin at that time. When I remember facing my first encounter with a wallet, with MetaMask, and having my cryptos and such before minting my first NFT, I was scared. Like I didn't want to go through the whole process because it's kind of scary. Like you don't know you're going to buy a digital picture. I mean, put it in this way, like at that time it was like some picture online that you can buy through a platform. By itself, it was a friction. If I'm going back into like, I don't know, like maybe 10, 15 years ago when there was like the emergence of the first buying online experience, like the free clicks to checkout type of experience, most of the people were not happy to put their credit card information online to buy anything online. So fast forward to where we are right now with the Web3 space. And even though like there's a lot of development that has been done into that space for the past 2-3 years, you still ask people to buy something online through cryptos using wallets. If you look into all those wallets that is out there, MetaMask, Coinbase wallet and such, you receive a numerous number of like scam airdrop, the same way we receive like the scam as an email. But I think there's a lot of tech that is still need to be evolved, like the adoption that needs to be happening so that people are less scared about doing the minting process of NFT. So to me, that's one of the biggest friction that I'm seeing in the space. But same thing, Web2 has its own issue at the time. Why do I want to put my information on social? Who cares about my picture on Facebook and such? And then going back before, like with the first iteration of the web, why do I want to go online for any kind of information? So I think that evolution is always something that I feel fascinating. And like, until you're kind of afraid of getting into that. But when you really get exposed, you can get the best analysis of like the way that those tools can support your day to day or like your wish. So yeah, I think that's the biggest friction that I've been seeing in the space, and I think that's the evolution in tech will help getting this more adoption for people to be more comfortable about buying cryptos, buying NFTs, and then use that for opening up communities and such.
Yeah, I just speaking from personal experience, man, the friction of buying crypto is so high. It's so bad. And especially if you want to go after an obscure coin. Like you have to go after these websites that you don't even know are real because you know that there's a bunch of fake ones out there. And then everyone's convincing you to go get a ledger because you got to get a ledger because that's the only way to be safe. And then you go get a ledger and then you forget your code and then you have to reset the ledger and then you have to like go through this like 20 name thing. Like, oh man, there's so much to it that's just organically built within our banking system as is. All those securities exist in the same way, but that friction has been removed from our banking system. So those that are getting into crypto that need to lock things down and need to get it into this secure space are used to what it means to go to a bank that's already locked down and already in a secure space. And so it's organically just a friction-filled transition. And man, it was a punch to the teeth for me.
I forgot like the name of the coin that has I know like I spent some time on like Twitter X doing my rabbit hole into like seeing everything that is into like the crypto space, the NFTs and such. And I've seen like one of the coin like I mean it was a couple of months ago when you were just dropping cryptos to a wallet, and then that person could then give you back a number of coins based on the amount that you share to him or her, and then translate into like those obscure coins that you can hold. Like the whole principle of I'm going to send you money and then somehow it's going to get some value at some point, but you never know if that person is like legit or not, is like a whole process that you would not expect with a bank system. So I think that aspect of like decentralization is interesting. There's some limits also out there that I think is always interesting to explore. But so many cool / weird use cases that you can see out there that process was blew my mind when I heard about it like the first time.
Yeah, that's I think I know what you're talking about. It's called Changely, maybe. There's a service online where you can go between different coin types. It might be something else.
No, yeah, it's completely something else like that. I think it was like a guy posting it on Twitter.
It was just a guy.
At the time it was Twitter, just like posting like through his handle and sharing like this is my if address, and then send me cryptos and you're gonna get the coins. So it was like a whole. I'm like you're sending money to someone, I send cryptos to someone like on a through like a blockchain through the blockchain, and then somehow you're going to get some coin out of it. So I mean the whole principle is blew my mind when I heard about it, but now it's more those use cases that we're going to see out there that is like peer-to-peer interaction in different ways.
Is he a prince in Nigeria? Is he a prince in Nigeria?
Not even. I think there was some scam like this, but yeah, that was like the new prince of Nigeria asking for like 10,000
Bitcoin. Exactly.
Chuck, he was the prince of Scottsdale, actually, yeah. Right around the corner from you.
That would be more believable. You know, it's funny because you talk about what you're talking about gets into that whole building trust and loyalty in the frictionless digital experience. When we wrote the book 2 years ago, The Audience of One, which again, I have to get into every episode. But when we wrote it, there was a stat that we pulled from Forrester. And I don't have it off the top of my head because it's been a while, but I want to say it's something like 62% of U.S. adults performed their first online transaction during the pandemic. And my mind was blown. I'm like, seriously, that many people were so afraid of, and it was the fear. It's like they weren't comfortable transacting digitally. And where we've come today, because so many people were forced to transact, that now that trust and now it's how do we take that friction out and make it a trustworthy experience? Super interesting.
And it's fascinating. I mean, I didn't know that stat, but it doesn't necessarily shock me. I know, like, I mean, per se, like everyone, I mean, most of the US consumer has done somehow purchase on Amazon. I think that's like the baseline now. It's like you so much have trust on Amazon that you buy on Amazon. But I guess, like, yes, the pandemic has forced us to not go to the store. So what can you do? You're on your home. You can only buy things online. You had like all those issues that we've seen in a major city with like buying something in the store that you had to shape into like a fresh direct and such. So you get to a point where it's more easy to buy anything online. And now, like the as I was mentioning, like 10 years ago or maybe 15 years ago, we were scared of putting our credit card information online. Now, I mean, all the system out there that I have, like, has my my different credit card information out there, so it's like an easy one-click process to buy something. But yeah, like the pandemic has pushed that transformation, and that's why, like, I've seen all those aspects of like the boom in all the different aspects in digital that we get more used to with like the pandemic and like all the things that we're facing now as of 2023.
Yeah, crazy. So Jean-Louis, what's something that principle that people get wrong about creating frictionless digital experiences? A widely held belief about it that you just fundamentally disagree with?
Just thinking that we had to craft something only on digital. Of course, at the end of the day, when you create a frictionless digital experience, it's the interface that you're going to see online. But this has to be taken into account into a larger spectrum into that consumer journey. For example, I know, like, I use the example of YSL for our D2C business, but our D2C business will not live only through our D2C. We have our offline channel, we have a retail and such. I always believe that you want to craft a global story for our brand whenever, like, the brand value, the DNA of the brand, the way that you share your brand out there needs to reflect the way that you want to translate virtually through an online platform or like a marketplace and such. But this has to be taken into account into the larger spectrum. Now, you can create a website in 2 seconds. I mean, I know, like, with AI tool, we've seen all those demos of like you can create a website in 10 minutes type of things. I know crafting some website, and as a designer, mentor and such into like UX, it takes a bit of more time to create that. But like setting up like a Shopify instead to create a website is not a complex thing to do. It's like, how do you make that experience relevant to the target audience and consumer out there, and then see that digital experience being part of something else, being part of the overall ecosystem. And that, I think, what I think is always interesting into digital. We come from the emergence of tech with the different evolution of the web. I come from like being like a older millennial type. We didn't have like those digital tool in the past. We had to be analog. So like the emergence of auto tech is something that I got to learn with my first phone back in the day when I was able to, call my friend, not being at home, to call with like a landline phone. But like all the small evolution that is happening out there needs to be thought through. Like we come from an analog world. Like we want this human to human interaction. This podcast, of course, we're doing it online, but like the fact being in the same place, that also bring also that sense of emotion, the virtual help in a way, but it will never change the fact that we're like a human animal that wants to have those human interaction, even though all those tools help now to call my mom on FaceTime that is in Paris anytime I want. So like that's where those digital are here to help, but they need to be used into its own aspect, and it's not going to replace everything out there. That's my sole point of view on all of those, but that's the way that I've always trying to craft digital experiences.
You know, Chuck, what I love about hearing that is that it aligns so well to what we heard from Paul Stanek, where he was talking about the combination of the physical world with the digital world in building design. So as you're building design, you create this new hybrid called the phygital world, coined by him. He said that we have to give him credit every time, and we are. But this phygital world is just so important to be able to create that good customer experience. And if you're forgetting that in your design, in your user experience, in everything that you're doing to create something good for your users, then you're missing a portion of it, something that's really important. And that could be even all the way to the point of the physically using the product that you are selling, whatever it may be. And so, that combination is just really interesting to hear that it aligns so well.
Like I know phygital as a concept has been and kudos to the person who were mentioning it at the talk at the last podcast. The concept of phygital was really something interesting, and that's why when I went back to like the first initiation of like my journey into digital, coming from the analog world, I've always loved that merge into the physical space and then having the digital tool out there. Now the emergence that I've been seeing in recently, like the web as it is, or like the website as it is, I always say like it's kind of a dry medium. You see pages on the website, and then you have like nice content that you scroll through here and there. What I'm passionate about, and I think that goes back to my geek years in the past, is now we are facing a more immersive web. So people will now, I mean, I know like this has been maybe shared into some previous podcasts, or like if we see things out there, but now there's going to be more and more Roblox-based experience when you can explore virtual world and such. Metaverse was a big thing. As I mentioned, like there was like the big 2022 spotlight. But the reason why we have those virtual space and such comes from the fact that comes from gaming. You apply the gaming to the web. Now you have immersive web that can apply to the same principle. And back in the day, we were playing The Sims. To me, it's somehow a bit connected all the way to what we have right now. But that's why you engage more consumer to like something that is static to something that is engaging when you're part of it. I was a big RPG fan when I was a kid. Now you can apply to browsing a website. You can apply to experiencing product in a different way. So that's like all those things that I'm happy to see the link between all those tech coming together. But yeah, that's why I'm fascinated about like all those the evolution happening into the tech space.
Yeah, man. And if I can't take a dime for every time I've said that the gaming industry has actually revolutionized technology, because it has pushed the limits of the way design works and the limits of what are needed for at hardware level. So business is actually not nearly pursuing the level of requirement that's needed by the gaming industry, yet the business is getting the benefit of that better infrastructure as a result. For the most part, that business side is mostly that database, heavy data engine, that kind of stuff. That's where the business innovation is coming from at a tech level. But when you're talking about GPUs, it's all gaming, every bit of it. And we're just driving so much of our innovation just through the gaming industry. I really love that you're bringing that as an example. And I too love RPGs a lot. Mm-hmm. All this stuff behind me is all just gaming themed stuff.
And I mean, gaming, as you were mentioning, was I'm going to apply that to somehow in tech, was not what was feature up front. Like if you were a gamer, that was not like considered as a good thing to do. Like you're in the basement, like you're with your monitor and stuff. Like it's not cool to do that. And tech was the same thing. I remember like when starting to tech, it was more fancy to work in some other industry than in tech. But now tech and gaming are fancy. Number of on Twitch, seeing people playing video games. It's still a concept that I've when I heard about it the first time, I'm still like, why do I want to see someone playing a video game? But that makes sense because like you wanna learn about it, and that game is getting more and more people are gamer. There's this misconception that only young male will play a video game, but I've seen a lot of women doing that. Like it's that aspect of like gaming as a whole is something that changed our ways of connecting to things, and that's why I love to transpose it into like digital experiences. So yeah, super interesting. And I've one of the panels that was that I attended about the retail and luxury. They were presenting how much Roblox is being part of a brand strategy, because that's a new way that you can interact with product, with virtual avatar, with skins that you buy out there, and like you apply that to the brands that help expand product in a different way. So I love seeing all of those evolving.
Yeah, and I can tell Chuck's going to try to cut me off, but I'm going to make sure to just steamroll right here before. But man, Roblox brings up a really funny story where it just like blew my mind. But I was listening to some children talk to their parents and say something along the lines of like, yeah, Roblox, I really want a Roblox card for a gift to be able to buy this specific sword or something. I can't even remember what the item was. And then the boy opened up his birthday gift and it was a few Roblox cards. And then some adult said something like, oh, you can get that sword now. And he said, no, it's $200. It's like, whoa. I'm sorry, what? What?
Yeah.
You need another birthday.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get it. I mean, it's at some point like the more rare. I know at some point like I haven't been playing a lot recently, like with FIFA, but at some point you wanted to buy the ultimate game, whether a team, whether like a player and such. I think there was like always those aspects of like you want to get the best out of it. So that's why to me it makes sense for people to just want to buy things online for something that is dematerialized. Because at the end of the day, that's why you spend most of your time. So why not buying also? So I think there's like a different aspect that makes sense for some people that may not apply to everyone. But like it happened to me, like I'm same thing. Like buying those games online is still something that I still want to do, and then buying those add-on makes sense at the end of the day.
Well, thanks for a great and transformative conversation, Jean-Louis. Where can listeners find you if they want to connect with you? What's the best way?
I mean, they can find me on LinkedIn. Like I'm big soccer fan. So if you guys want to play, like that's Sundays in Brooklyn type of thing. But yeah, that's finding me on LinkedIn. On most of my social are out there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Frictionless Experience. Remember to follow us on your favorite podcast player app so you can automatically receive notifications when we upload new episodes. And be sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Let us know what you think. And hey, what topics you want us to cover in future episodes. We'd be happy to cover anything that might be causing you friction. And of course, you can always find and connect with me and Nick on LinkedIn.